This is Fort Knox Live. I'm here in New York City at the Javits Center with CNBC's Phil LeBeau.
Good to be here.
Our expert in cars and pretty much everything that moves with people, passengers.
Wings and wheels, we say.
Yeah, wings and wheels, everything.
And Hyperloop.
And Hyperloop. But we're here at the New York Auto Show at a time when technology in cars, bigger subject than ever. We're going to talk about autonomous and some of the controversy around Uber. We're going to talk about the latest technology coming into cars. We're going to talk about kind of the global competitive landscape for that. Jeff Richards from GGV Capital is going to join us later. His firm has invested in Didi and Grab, which are sometimes battling against Uber, sometimes doing deals with them. Both of them have done deals with Uber in China and Southeast Asia. But first, I'm going to talk about Alphabet, Google's autonomous project. They've been working on this pretty much the longest out in Silicon Valley.
9 years, basically.
Now their effort is called Waymo. They've kind of separated it out a little bit.
Right.
And Jaguar is who they're working with. They've got, like, what, is it 20,000?
20,000 of these will be hitting the road in the United States starting in 2020. So you got 20,000 of these that'll go into autonomous rideshare programs operated by Waymo between 2020 and 2022. So this is not a small pilot program in a suburb of Phoenix. This is going to be eventually in the large metropolitan areas around the country.
And this is in 2 years.
Well, you'll start to see them in 2020, and then by 2022, all 20,000 will be out there.
The backdrop for what's happening here, and by the way, we are live on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, over the top on Amazon, Apple TV, on the CNBC apps. The backdrop to this is this tragic accident that occurred in Arizona. Was it Friday?
Yep.
Friday night, a woman was crossing the street, crossed suddenly, and an Uber driverless car that did have...
It was in autonomous mode and it was being tested.
Right, it had a driver in the seat, but he did not appear to be paying attention. Looked like he could have been looking at something else.
Right, and the broader question is not just should the driver have seen the woman who was hit by the vehicle, should the LiDAR, which basically gives you a 360-degree view of everything that's happening out in front of the car, around the car, theoretically, it should have picked her up.
Now let's talk
and that
about,
should have prompted the sensors to hit the brakes for the driver, if the sensors didn't operate, to hit the brakes as well.
Let's talk about LiDAR, because we've got one of these cars right over here. LiDAR is not camera-based. It's not based on the amount of light that you're getting. It's kind of like, I mean, for people who have the iPhone 10, it's got this little sensor in the front that's supposed to read your face, even in the dark. LiDAR operates on a similar concept. I know, where on this Jaguar would the LiDAR be mounted?
Well, the most notable one is going to be the black dome on top there. That has LiDAR as well as cameras in there. But if you look around the vehicle, and if we come over here, Marco, our photographer, can show us this. See this little bump right here in the front corner panel? There's one on this side and one on the driver's side. You've got sensors in there, some LiDAR as well as some radar, and then you've got sensors throughout the vehicle. There's one down here. It's a little bit hard to see, but that's another LiDAR or radar sensor. They don't delineate exactly where they are in the car, but they are throughout the vehicle, and it's providing a 360-degree view of what that vehicle sees. And what's important here is that LiDAR allows you to see around trucks, around corners, so that if you're coming up to an intersection, let's say there's a big delivery truck there, and there's a pedestrian on the other side, the vehicle, if LiDAR is working correctly, should know that there is a pedestrian walking. So you should not have these unusual instances that you hear people say, well, what if I dart in front of a car? Is it possible that could happen in the future with a self-driving car and the car not see the person? Yes, that is possible. But theoretically, if LiDAR, camera, and radar are all working, those instances should be greatly minimized.
So you're saying LiDAR, or at least some of these sensors, are even able to detect things through objects?
Correct, or around objects. So it gives you a 360-degree view. And that's important because sometimes you have a vehicle that's going to T-bone you at an intersection. Theoretically, these vehicles should have a pretty good read on that and be able to say, okay, let's slow down because we know what we're approaching here.
Now, the reason why this is important, I mean, even if you don't drive, if you ever cross the street, you've got a dog in this fight. You've got a stake in this game. There are going to be cars on the road that have some elements of this technology, whether there's a driver behind the wheel also paying attention, whether it's driver assist.
Let's be clear here. We are the problem. You and I and everybody else. We're the idiots on the road, or either walking, riding our bike, crossing the street, looking at our smartphones. And I hear this from people all the time. Well, will these cars be able to stop accidents? Not all accidents, because if you look at most accidents involving self-driving cars right now, most of the accidents involve a human driver not paying attention when they come up to an intersection, rear-ending a self-driving car. It's not that the self-driving car did anything wrong, it's that we, the humans, continue to do what we should be doing, which is not pay attention and make some poor choices when we're behind the wheel.
Right, software doesn't drink and drive.
Right.
Software doesn't get sleepy behind the wheel, at least it's not supposed to.
Absolutely.
But the thing that I worry about, and that maybe other people should worry about, is if we don't understand the limits of the technology and we take it for granted that it's there, then our own literal blind spots that we assume are covered, then perhaps we don't check them. And then there's a problem.
And this is the messy transition that we're in, because you're going to have that. At some point, we will become comfortable, let's say 5-10 years from now, we will become very comfortable in a self-driving vehicle. And because we're comfortable, we'll assume that it will always make the right choice for us. And then we won't pay as much attention behind the wheel. There will be more accidents. There will be more deaths. But the question is this: will there be as many accidents and as many fatalities on the road that we have right now with basically humans doing all of the driving? In the general feeling is no, we should have far fewer, but again, this is that messy transition.
Now this car is where two major trends, electric and autonomous, come together. Tell us about why Google Waymo, I'll keep on throwing Google in there just because it's part of the same family, why they picked this car versus, I don't know, there are a lot of others that they've experimented with.
Well, some of that's because of partnerships. Look, you're not going to go up to General Motors and say, hey, I'd like to strike a partnership. General Motors would look at you and say, well, we've got GM Cruise. Why would we do a deal with Waymo? Maybe down the road that could happen, but generally speaking, some of that is ruled out because of partnerships. Jaguar didn't have a partnership with anybody. It is a brand new vehicle. It is electric. It has the latest in terms of safety and all of the features that you want in a vehicle.
Now, when you say brand new vehicle, what do you mean? Because you say that to me and I think,
it's just hitting the market.
Okay.
So it's not like you're taking an old, outdated, and let's walk down this way. It's not like you're taking an old, outdated model and saying, well, let's slap some LiDAR and some radar and some camera on there. Instead, what you're doing is you have a model that, a clean sheet, if you will.
Okay.
And because it's electric, that was important for Waymo. It allows them the opportunity to make full use of the efficiencies of a vehicle, because theoretically, if this is a ride-share vehicle, you want it to be used as often as possible, as efficiently as possible, so that you can direct it back to where it can recharge for an hour, 2 hours when it's not being used in a fleet. You do not want to have to stop, I don't know, every 75 to 100 miles and say, let's find a gas station and fill up. It just is not as efficient that way.
So there are some other technological leaps that are represented here. We got Porsche over here.
Let's talk about Porsche, because here's
Porsche.
Porsche. And here's a statistic.
I never know whether it's Porsche or Porsche.
You're not alone.
I'm glad to get that cleared up.
Here's a statistic, and the reason we're here at the e-hybrid of the Panamera 4, the reason that we're here is by 2025, over 50% of the Porsches that are sold in the United States will be plug-in. Think about that. Now, people look at Porsche and they say, well, it's a great driving experience, and it is. And they don't think that they have hybrids. They don't think that they are working on electric cars, which they are. You've got the Mission E that'll come out at the end of next year. Electric is going to be big for Porsche in the future. And that's why I always hear people say, well, Tesla dominates the electric car market and always will. Really? Well, let's see what happens when their vehicles come out. Do I expect them to sell as many as Tesla right away? No, they won't, and they admit that. But it's wrong to just throw in the towel and say when it comes to luxury electric, Tesla has it all.
Did Tesla totally change the conversation around performance and electric? Because it seems to me like it used to be, people felt like you needed gas, you needed that rumbling noise. I associate a sound with Porsche.
And as you know, when you drive an electric vehicle, because you have instant torque, you have incredible acceleration, you have incredible handling, and that driving experience completely changes the dynamics. And let's get to this question of, well, I like the throaty sound of whether it's a Porsche, or I love the fact that if I'm in a Camaro and I gas it up and I can hear it and I can feel it. Well, first of all, you will feel it when you're driving, and if you want that sound in the future, you will be able to put that in your vehicle. It's as simple as putting a chip in there.
Is that cheesy though? I mean, it's
well,
like
that brings up the question, is it cheesy? Because what kind of sound do you want to put in there? Are you putting in an authentic sound from that model, or are you putting in something else? You know, there are people who argue that it would be cheesy, and I can understand them saying that.
Is there an overall opinion right now about whether that's going to be a mainstream thing, that the sound of yesteryear?
Oh, I don't think
smartphones still ring.
Correct.
Right?
I don't think you'll see a lot of it. In fact, I think you'll see a lot of people who will take their electric vehicle just as it is. But like phones, they will be customizable in the future. And because they'll be customizable, you will have people say, well, gee, I want that particular sound in my Porsche or in whatever electric vehicle it might be. And by the way, your phone is a great analogy for what we're seeing here, the entire hall. We are moving towards a period where just as you will have people who will say, I want the latest Android or I want the latest iPhone, people will increasingly say, I want a car that has the latest connectivity, autonomous features, the ability to, if it's electric, I want to have the longest range possible. We're moving that way. Now, it's a higher price point and it won't be as easy to change in your vehicle, but that's what you're going to see more of. And what's going to drive it? Subscription services. I bet you will see more of that because people will say, I want to trade out. I want the newest model. And companies like Porsche are already noticing greater interest from younger buyers when it comes to a subscription model where you pay X amount a month.
And I don't know if it's just me getting older and being a dad now or what, but it seems like safety.
The Porsche press conference will begin.
It's an auto show.
It is.
You always get this. Let's go over here to Genesis
we're
and we
live.
can talk more about
this. But first,
this.
and I do want to talk about safety as a factor in the technology and extras, though. And maybe we can swing back over here real quick while we do that, because it has to do with this Jaguar that Waymo's going to be using.
You like
Loud.
that?
It's like a gaming conference. I don't know if it's because I'm a dad or what, but in the past, it seemed like the extra features really were like bells and whistles.
Correct.
And maybe now they're even more linked in to safety. The autonomy, the alerts, things like that. It's not, I mean, anti-lock brakes were always great. Power steering was always convenient. But now I feel like if I got kids in the car, I really do want a lot of these extras.
And increasingly, automakers are finding, whereas in the past it would be a la carte. You'd say, well, yeah, I do want this, but I don't want that. Increasingly, people want all of it. And because of that, automakers are making more of those features standard so that you don't have to ask about it when you go to the dealership, or a tier up. Okay, you want all those features, buy this tier of a particular vehicle and you will have all of them in there. And it might be a couple $1,000s more depending on what services or what features you want included in that.
And we're getting that sound of the Porsche,
yeah.
that Porsche, that might be a relic of the past eventually when they go electric. But I wanted to make that link to safety because John Kravchuk talked to you about Waymo's focus on safety, perhaps in contrast with what Uber was dealing with. Take a listen to what he said.
At Waymo, our focus has always been safety, and we consider ourselves and what we've been doing really as building the world's most experienced driver. And we've backed that up with 5 million miles of autonomous driving in 25 cities across the US, 5 billion miles, billion with a B, Phil, in simulation, ensuring that our software and our sensors are as good as they can be. And we've developed 20,000 different test scenarios at our private test track to put that car and that technology through its paces to make sure it's very, very safe. From the regulator side, it's our job, I think, to make sure that they understand our technology. So we spend a lot of time with them, making sure that they understand what we're up to. We've published something called a safety report, which was a request from NHTSA to detail the specifics of how our self-driving technology sees the world and how it ensures that it keeps people safe.
But have you heard from regulators in following that accident, even though it wasn't your vehicle, have you heard from regulators in California or Arizona saying, hey, let's take another look at what we're planning on doing here?
Nothing specific from them, but I have to say that we're continuously chatting with them. And again, I think that's part of our responsibility at Waymo, is to make sure the world and the cities in which we perform and the regulators who regulate those cities understand our technology.
I am John Fortt. This is Fortt Knox Live at the New York Auto Show with CNBC's Phil LeBeau. We are talking cars, autonomous technology, electric, all of it. Also getting into a bit that Uber accident last Friday that has been the talk of at least the autonomous industry, and any concerns about whether it might slow down the move toward autonomous. I mean, Uber and NVIDIA have both halted their autonomous tests on the road. How big a deal is that?
It's significant for them. NVIDIA's software, the chips, are part of the Uber system that was being tested. So I'm not surprised that they said, hey, let's take a step back and take a look at things in terms of our testing on public roads. John Krafcik made a great point in there in terms of saying we run X millions of miles in terms of on public roads as well as their test track, and billions of miles in simulators. That's how the system is able to learn to eliminate potential problems that they come across. And if you were to drive in a Waymo vehicle now compared to a year or 2 years ago, you would notice the difference. And my sense is that we will probably notice a difference when we start to see the rideshare service start later this year. I had a chance to go in a Waymo vehicle at their test facility earlier this year. Now, everybody will say, well, it's a test facility. It's not real life. It's not people who are actually coming out of a car and pulling out of their driveway not looking. Correct. At the same time, they simulated potential situations, and the vehicles reacted as you would hope the vehicle would react.
We've got a question from viewer Lee Pridemore saying, what do you drive on the weekends?
I get this question all the time. An Acura MDX.
I drive a Toyota Highlander. Not that you care what I drive. I want to know what Phil drives. Also, Rocky Agrawal writes in, people will die, yes, but in the long run, we will save many lives and increase societal good in lives and environment. Going to a point that you were bringing up at the very beginning, that, you know, cars don't have one too many to drink. They don't get tired. Overall, the numbers are probably going to be good for them.
37,000 people, roughly speaking, were killed in traffic-related accidents last year. I think something like 5,000 pedestrian-related fatalities last year. That number, if we were completely autonomous, all vehicles, which is not realistic, it would drop dramatically.
If the technology is good.
If the technology is good. But you need all of that system to be self-driving in order for it to work. Because again, it doesn't work if I'm in this vehicle and it's safely taking me home and a guy comes out of a bar and he's ripped and he drives like an idiot and he shouldn't be driving and he hits my car. There's nothing, there's not much that can protect me in this car, aside from the safety system. But if somebody is drunk and they're not in a self-driving car, that's still going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we've got Hyundai over here, though it says Genesis. That's their luxury brand.
Yep.
And let's take a walk over there. They've got something.
And this is an example. Well, you mentioned the luxury automakers, or really all automakers, adding more standard safety features. Hyundai is a perfect, or Genesis is a perfect example of that, because Genesis is capitalizing on the strength of Hyundai, which is safety and reliability.
Did they make a mistake, by the way? Because when they came out with Genesis, they sort of decided to separate it from the Hyundai brand. But I feel like they've actually done pretty well with the Hyundai brand since then. They might be doing better with Genesis if they hadn't completely made it separate.
No, you have to make it separate.
Yeah?
Here's the reason why you have to. Let's go up here. Lexus Toyota is a good example. And we can come over here. We're protected a little bit from the sound. But if you look at this vehicle here, while it has many of the characteristics that you find with Hyundai, it is establishing its own look, its own identity, and you needed to do that. Because for an upscale brand to thrive, it cannot be sold in the same showroom as the mass market brands. You just can't do that. Here's a good example. Would you want somebody, let's say, interested in a Cadillac, to have to go into a Chevy dealership? And, you know, right next to the Chevy Spark is the Cadillac Escalade. It just doesn't work. And that's basic basic sales and positioning in the market.
Okay. Now, what they're doing at Genesis with standard features is a little bit different.
Right, because all of the safety features, all of the driver assist, and that's really key, those driver assist features, all of that is part and parcel to what you get with Genesis. And that's going to be very appealing to a buyer. A buyer is going to sit there and say, I don't want to have to think about whether or not I have to upgrade to the next line, the next suite of features. If it's standard within a vehicle, that is going to be highly attractive. And I think that's a smart move by Genesis to say, you get it all when you get with us. You don't have to sit here and worry about, well, can I afford this? Do I want to go with that? It's a wise move.
What kinds of features are we talking about? Like
well, when you're talking about the driver assist, you're talking about whether it's lane assist, lane departure systems, a automatic braking, automatic electric braking, all of those features that allow you as a driver, when you are not completely paying attention, to give you, that's why they call it driver assist, to give you that assist. It's going to give you the alert, it's going to stop before it rear ends another vehicle. All of those extra help features, if you will, because we know that you're a good driver, but they also realize that we make mistakes when we're behind the wheel.
Casimir Lewis has a question. Phil, what impact do you think autonomous will have on the rental car industry? Will the entire car industry become the rental car industry, or will the rental car industry go away?
I don't think the rental car industry will go away. You're already seeing an impact already. Autonomous will have its greatest impact in terms of rideshare right off the bat. Look, it's too expensive for you and I to go out and to buy an autonomous drive vehicle.
Exactly.
It just is. If you look at the sensors and the radar in there, you and I could not afford it.
So am I going to need to buy a car at all?
Eventually you may buy one that has autonomous features to it, but you will be a part of a service, whether it's Waymo or whether it's another rideshare service that has autonomous drive vehicles. Especially in urban areas, that's what you will see more of. Now, for rental car companies, they're already noticing the impact in terms of people saying, well, when I go for a one-day trip into New York City, do I need to rent a car?
Right.
No, I can take an Uber or a Lyft, and I can maneuver wherever I want to. Now, if I'm going to Topeka, Kansas for the day, do I need to rent a car? As somebody who lived in Kansas at one point and understand the wide distances you have to cover, yeah, you may still want to rent a car. So it's a challenging time, but I think the rental car industry is evolving.
When we're renting an autonomous car, I think there was
now you're really throwing it out there.
Yeah, hey. I mean, because we recently had the story, was it out of China, about a vending machine for cars that looked like a Ferris wheel?
Right.
And it would come around and there was a car
right.
in there. Like, you can imagine when those things are autonomous, it's like, hey, you swipe your credit card, the car comes out, you jump in, it takes you where you need to go.
One of the great marketing techniques out there, because people they're fascinated. I get more questions about vending machines for cars. They're not truly vending machines. It's how you pick up your delivery from the dealer or from the manufacturer. But you know what? It's salesmanship, and that's a smart move on their part. Do I think...
So it's not literally just sitting there on the street?
No, it's not. What manufacturer would manufacture a car and say, gee, I hope that there's a customer who comes by here at some point? Those vehicles are positioned there so that when you come there to pick up your vehicle, it looks like a vending machine. It's fantastic marketing. And that's part of it.
They got me.
So in answer to your question, will we see people renting autonomous vehicles in the future? Probably not. I think you're more likely to use an autonomous vehicle rideshare service. It is possible way down the line, and I'm talking like 20, 25 years down the line, that you might go on a vacation and say, well, I'd like an autonomous drive vehicle all to myself. But then you start getting into the question of how efficient is it? If it's just giving me a ride somewhere, and these cars are zipping all over the place, and I can easily get into a rideshare service, why would I have to rent my own?
Let's go big picture. I mean, we're here at the New York Auto Show.
Sure.
What's happening to car culture? I mean, the sound, the gassing up, so many elements of it are potentially going away. Are there new pieces to it? What does it mean to be a car lover anymore?
It's a bit of a challenging time to say that you're a car lover right now. Look, you can have great performance, and there's no shortage of sports cars and performance cars out there that will give you phenomenal performance that you have not seen before. That is not going away. What is going away to a certain extent is the distinctiveness that we once saw within particular models. You would see a model and you would say, wow, I understand what that's all about. I understand the appeal of it. You hear the auto industry talk all the time about what we really want to resonate with buyers. I would venture to guess that if you went and asked most of your friends, even your car lovers, what are you interested in right now that really stands out? and it's hard for them to really say. There's always going to be your Camaro fan or your Corvette fan. There's always going to be the Mustang fan. Porsche people are Porsche people. They're always going to want that. But it's tougher and tougher for those brands to stand out.
What about trucks?
Oh, they're huge.
What is distinguishing them? I mean, there was a trend toward people having trucks, pickup trucks, and they didn't
and that's still going on.
particularly have a farm to work them on.
That's still happening.
That's still happening?
And the reason that's happening is because what you're noticing is, as the full-size pickup truck, have you seen one lately? I mean, they are full-size.
They're huge.
You really only need a full-size pickup truck if you are making use of it, whether you have a ranch or some land and you're going to throw something in the back. And as a result, people kind of forgot about the way trucks used to look, which is now the mid-size pickup truck. Toyota was going to town with great sales there when you had the Toyota Tacoma in that little segment there. Well, General Motors noticed it and said, well, wait a second, why don't we come out with a mid-size pickup truck? It's caught on, and now you're going to see Ford bring back the Ranger because it realizes the mid-size pickup truck for people like you and I who live in an urban area who may want a truck. We're not going to do anything with it. Look, if I bought a truck, I'd throw some seed in the back of it in the spring and maybe some fertilizer, and that's it. Generally speaking, I'm not going to make use of it. But it's appealing to have a pickup truck, and that's where the mid-size truck comes in.
Your friends will ask you to help them move, though, for sure.
They always do. I always turn to my friends who had pickup trucks when I was moving.
That'll be sure to. Phil, thanks so much. This is cool. Get your perspective on so many of these trends out there, especially what's really going on with autonomous and where it's headed.
It's a fun time. It's a fun time.
It's exciting for sure to see the technology and the car worlds collide for real. Phil LeBeau here at the New York Auto Show with me. I'm John Fortt. This has been Fortt Knox Live. Thanks for the great questions on Periscope, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and over the top on CNBC's app on Apple TV and Amazon Fire TV. See you next time.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.